What do fashion design, anxiety, irregular periods, and building a thriving business during COVID have in common? Today's guest turned all of it into a healing practice and a career. Welcome back to Conejo Valley Visionaries. I'm your host, Cristina Dennstedt, and today I'm sitting down with Alyson Flack, founder of Moon Phase Acupuncture in Thousand Oaks. Alyson's journey started in the fashion world, but a personal search for healing led her down a completely different and ultimately more aligned path. She opens up about how acupuncture helped her manage anxiety and balance her health, and how that experience reshaped the way she approaches healing, treating the whole person, not just the symptoms. We also get real about entrepreneurship, building a practice from scratch, surviving the uncertainty of the pandemic, and why community is at the heart of everything she's creating. This episode is thoughtful, grounding, and full of insight for anyone curious about holistic health or building a business that actually reflects who you are. Let's get into it. If you enjoy this episode and find value in the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and rating. This helps more people find the podcast, and therefore each story can reach more folks in the Conejo Valley. Hey, Alyson, welcome to Conejo Valley Visionaries.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. I am so thrilled to talk to you about your practice and, of course, how you got here to the Conejo Valley. But what we always like to do on this podcast is start from the beginning. So, Alyson, what did you want to be, or where did you grow up, and what did you want to be as a kid?
Okay, so I grew up outside of Boston, Massachusetts, about 15 minutes north. And I actually wanted to be a fashion designer when I was growing up, like most kids. And that's
Actually, I hear most kids want to be vets. So you're sort of like, that's a bit unique, I think, to have that creative lens.
okay, awesome. I mean, I love animals too. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I wanted to be a fashion designer, and that was actually my first career. So to be honest, the first thing I ever wanted to be was a doctor, which is kind of funny. And then early in my childhood, I realized I didn't like blood, which is kind of funny. And I was like, you know what? I really want to be a fashion designer. I love clothes and art. So that was actually my first career. And I lived in New York for about a decade, and that's what I did.
Okay.
And then it's kind of a crazy story how I ended up becoming an acupuncturist, because fashion designer acupuncturist is totally different, obviously.
Yeah. Well, okay. But it seems to sort of like maybe lend back to your doctor desires. So you didn't like blood, but you fell into fashion. Was it what part of fashion did you like? Were you reading fashion magazines? Did you just like putting on clothes? Like, where was that passion?
All of it. I mean, I grew up in like the 80s and 90s, so fashion was a little crazy anyway.
Yeah.
And I always loved shopping, and I loved fashion magazines, and I don't know, I just was always interested in color and print and things like that. So I actually became a fashion designer. I went to school at FIT in New York. Um, and I worked in design for several large companies, but after a few years, as a lot of corporate jobs do, it changed, and I kind of pigeonholed um, to more design. I worked towards being a design director. So I did the color, print, trend, basically telling the designers what to design, like the concepts, the very creative side of things. So
What are there any brands that you worked for that we would recognize?
yeah, so I worked for mostly mall brands.
Okay.
I worked for a couple of high fashion brands when I was starting out, when I was interning. But they don't pay as well as, the corporate mall brands. But it was great opportunities. Like I interned for Marc Jacobs and this high fashion indie line called Imitation of Christ that's no longer. But I worked for The Gap twice. I worked for Baby Gap, and it was my first job out of design school. And then I worked for Gap Adult years later. And I also worked for Victoria's Secret. Um, and I worked for a bunch of other brands, but those are like the two biggest, I would say.
And did you like that? I mean, sort of guiding, that's interesting. So you were sort of like setting the footprint based on, I guess, consumer research in terms of what designers should create for the seasons ahead.
Yeah, I loved it. It was so fun. And it was really fun and creative. And I got to shop a lot, which was great, and dangerous. But yeah, I loved it so much. It was very stressful, obviously. I mean, when you think of New York City and like fashion designer, it's very stressful, but I can handle it. I'm really into astrology, side note. If you follow my brand, you probably can tell that. But I'm a Capricorn, so I work hard. It's known for Capricorns. So I didn't mind working hard, being stressed, working long hours, but when the economy dropped in 2008, there wasn't so much job security in fashion design in general, but also because I got pigeonholed into design direction, which I loved, and I think I was great at it, but not many companies have that budget, unfortunately. So, yeah.
So
So
that was sort of your pivot. It's interesting. I was in New York during that time period as well, and working in fashion, so
oh,
experienced similar, yeah, where like the industry really shrunk and sort of forced, I think, a lot of us to kind of move in a different direction. So was
yeah.
that when you decided to sort of pursue acupuncture, or what was that turning point?
Well, it was a couple of years after that, I weathered the storm, I jumped around, you do what you gotta do, right? And I loved my career. So, a couple of years later, I kept on hitting the same roadblock, like, it was the economy, but I'm a spiritual person, I felt like the universe was telling me, like, "It's time to change, you have to make a change." And I love psychology and therapy, and I've been in therapy for a long time, and I love it. It helps me so much. So actually, I was going to go back to school to be a psychologist, therapist, because people have always come to me with their problems, even in a workplace. Like people I would manage at work would come to me with like family problems and things like that. So, and I love fashion, I really did, but just all the stress, which I can handle, but it was just like I was getting older and I was thinking about how I wanted to do something that made a difference. It sounds corny, but I really love helping people, and all that stress wasn't really worth it, for not even really. I mean, I love creativity and I love the arts, don't get me wrong. I think they're very important, but I don't know. I was like, I felt the need to help people. So that was my plan. But I had a art degree, fashion design degree. So I was like, I'm gonna have to go back to school for a long time, which I could handle, but I was just procrastinating it.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big shift.
Yeah. And I mean, I was successful and I was gonna have to put that on hold and build back up from the beginning.
Hmm.
So that was the plan, but I just was procrastinating it, putting on hold. And then I randomly got acupuncture. And in Brooklyn, where I was living, it was on my radar for a very long time. I'm originally from Massachusetts, like I said, and one of my old best friends actually got Bell's palsy when she was 28, and it was the only thing that helped her. So more than anything else, I'd like to say. And so I was always interested in it, fascinated. But like a lot of my patients, I thought about it, but it didn't go until the time was right, I feel like.
Was there a specific injury that forced you to pursue acupuncture? Because that's in my mind, like what people, there's usually like some
Yeah.
thing that pushes people to go and experiment.
No one's ever asked me that question, and that's such a good question. No, I just randomly started going. And
Okay.
I didn't even go for pain, to be honest.
Mm.
I went for a lifetime of anxiety, like why I went to therapy, and also irregular periods, actually, like
Okay.
menstruation. And it helped me so much with mental and physical. And so I was sold. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. So I mean, it also took me a while to make that leap after that, but that's why. It just helped me so much. And I was also just amazed because most people think of acupuncture, you think of pain. But I was just amazed that it could help with anxiety and also, hormones. So, yeah.
So how long was that period between having that experience and then getting over the procrastination and jumping into the new path?
Um, I don't know, like a year or two, maybe 2 years. Yeah, about like a year and a half, 2 years. But the thing is, I was going to go to school in New York, and there was two major acupuncture schools, Chinese medicine schools in New York at the time, and I was going to freelance, keep making money, go to school there, and I did 2 tours each of each school, so 4 tours, and there was something just holding me back, and I knew it wasn't procrastination, but something about those schools, I was like, I don't know, I just wasn't connecting with them. So then well, it wasn't random. I came out here for kind of a business trip. I used to have a candle company for about 7 years. I always have more than one job. I think it's Capricorn thing. But I
Well,
had,
entrepreneurial spirit as well.
yeah, exactly. This Moon Phase Acupuncture is actually my fourth fourth business. Yeah. So I had a candle company for about 7 years. It was in Brooklyn and then LA when I moved here for grad school. And I came out here to sell my candles. I used to do renegade craft fairs, and I did them in Brooklyn, Chicago, came out here for LA and San Francisco. And it was great. We had a great time. I came with one of my best friends who's a jewelry designer. And when I went back to New York, one of my close friends that was living in Venice here reached out to me, and she was trying to talk me into moving back to LA because that's where she was living. And she was my random roommate in Brooklyn years ago, in 2007, actually. And she's like, "You should move here and go to the school in Santa Monica. It's supposed to be amazing. And we can be roommates again." And I was like, "Yeah, that's hilarious." And I didn't even like look into the school at all. I was like, "That's not going to happen." Then maybe a month later, I was like, "You know what? Maybe I should just check it out. These schools aren't doing it for me in New York." So I actually did the research, and it was Emperor's College, and it was excellent school. Fortunately, it just closed about 6 months ago after 42 years. But the school was amazing, top ranked in California, second in the country for many years. And I just clicked with it. It seemed amazing. It was very high rated, and it was actually in California, you have to learn about Chinese herbs. And in New York, you don't. And I really like that because it's a huge part of the medicine. Even if you don't use herbs in your practice that often or with every patient, it's just such a huge part of the medicine and understanding the medicine. So that was a big part of it for me, of why I chose that school. And then I always wanted to live in Southern California. So I don't know.
The
And then,
stars aligned.
yeah, and I loved my life in New York, and I love, friends in New York. There's still most of my best friends live in New York. It's
Yeah.
like lifetime bonds. Like I have a lot of roots there. So it was bittersweet, but I just made a decision. I moved here like kind of impulsively in like 2, 3 months.
Okay. Feel like that's sometimes how the best, moves happen. You just have to rip the Band-Aid, especially as someone who's made that move from New York too. It can really pull you and keep you there. And a lot of people will tell you you're making the wrong decision, but you just have to sort of do it at some point to end. That's amazing that you did. So then you came out here, you're living in LA, studying Ember's College, acupuncture. Did you have an idea then that you wanted to start your own practice? What are the different sort of like ways you can leverage an education in acupuncture and Chinese medicine?
That's a great question. So I always wanted to work for myself. Um, I had my own line of clothing years ago, a couple of times actually. But when I went to school for acupuncture, it was always my plan to have my own practice. It never occurred to me to work for anyone else. Just with this career in particular, I just thought I'd have my own practice and I'd build from the bottom, and that's what I did. So that was my plan. School was amazing, but you never know. Everyone I've talked to that's gone that road, you never know what you're getting into when you go. 4-year master's program is in the medical field very extensive, and there's no breaks. There's no summers off. The first 2 years you have 4 weeks off a year, and then the next 2 years you don't have any time off unless you make up the hours, because the second 2 years you're in classes and clinic treating patients. So you have to make up the hours to have breaks. So it's just very extensive. It was amazing, but just very taxing and tiring. And then when you graduate, you have to study, they say 6 to 8 hours for 4 to 6 months, 6 days a week, to pass the licensing board exam. So talk about being tired and burnt out. And then they're like, open your own practice. So it was overwhelming, but I did it. And I actually had my son in the third year, which was awesome and a lot. So
As
when
a whole
I
other
graduated
way.
a year old, yeah. So, um, but yeah, it was always my plan to do my own thing, and
Okay.
I don't regret it.
Did you have a business plan? And I'm always curious because I feel like, with something like acupuncture, which I imagine a lot of people want to go and start their own businesses too. Do they give you any tools during those 4 years to help, understand how to start your own business? Or was this something that you found resources outside of school to learn? Or I mean, you also have started other businesses in the past. I'm sure you learned some learnings along the way.
Well, they need to bump that up in acupuncture schools and Chinese medicine schools. So there was a couple classes, but there weren't particular classes just on business plans. There were classes that talk about it in some, there'll be a class on how to plan your business, but not a whole course. So it was touched on, is what I want to say, just but not enough for sure.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to say the least, but you just
You're
it's a small community, so you can connect with other acupuncturists, people
yeah,
that you school with, or even across the country. It's kind of a small community, so we help each other out, which is great.
that's incredible. Did you start your first practice in LA or was your first one out here?
So I started, so it's always been Moon Phase Acupuncture, which is just me, and I started 6.5 years ago, and I started in Sherman Oaks because I couldn't afford to just have my own freestanding space to start off, which I'm kind of glad it worked out that way too, because we make a lot of mistakes. So I just looked around. I actually live in Woodland Hills, West Hills. So I looked everywhere and I just found this office in Sherman Oaks. And I rented from another acupuncturist, but with my own brand. And I started there and it was great. And I built up some clientele in like the LA, Studio City, Sherman Oaks area. And then after about 8 months, I don't know, I always have to have more than one job. So I started looking around where I live and I couldn't really find anywhere to rent. I did have a brief stint in Calabasas, which was great, but it wasn't cohesive to an acupuncture office, so I didn't stay there. And then I was looking around and then I found a space February 2020, actually, in Westlake. And it was just one room and it was an office of dietitians and therapists. And and most of them worked with eating disorders, which I thought was amazing. So I ended up renting one room there for like a year and a half. Wait, how long? Yeah, little under 2 years when I found my own space to move in Thousand Oaks. So I moved to this area in like November 2021.
Okay. Wow.
No,
That happened quickly.
February 2020 in Westlake, but then Thousand Oaks when I got my own space was November 2021.
Okay. Wow. So during COVID, so right, you during the pandemic, you open a space that, acupuncture, I can't believe could happen remotely. So these are things that need to happen in person.
Or,
How did you manage that?
well, actually, I know it was nerve wracking. I can't believe
Yeah,
I signed that lease in February 2020. I mean, no one knew what was going to happen, right?
of course. Right.
Um, it was nerve wracking, but I actually built my business during COVID. I got really busy. It was awesome. I'm very grateful because people had time and people were worried about their health. I mean, this was
Yeah.
my guess, right? So,
Right.
and people were afraid, we needed people. We needed to be around people. So I treated patients. I had a mask on, they had a mask on, and
Mhm.
it was awesome. And I got really busy and I still have a lot of those patients today, which I'm grateful for. So it was awesome, but definitely nerve wracking. So
Great. Does your practice have a particular focus? You mentioned you were in this Westlake office with folks that treated eating disorders. Is there like one particular thing that you find most of your patients are coming in for, or is it pretty holistic in how you approach things?
it's a holistic medicine just in general, and the way I approach things is holistic. I'm just here to help people. It's so interesting, and everyone's so complicated, right? So people walk in with three problems, and I'll treat all three, like neck injury, acid reflux, depression. I'll treat all three, which is amazing.
In one treatment?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Most
Okay.
of the time, because you know every needle it sends a signal to your brain and central nervous system to heal itself. So the more needles you do, the more watered down a treatment will be. So most of the time I'll do all of it, but if someone's like really suffering in one place, we might just focus on that one, chief complaint. So it depends.
Mm.
So generally I'm holistic, and but if I had to have like a niche, it would be psycho emotional. So taking my love of therapy and, help, I wanted to be a therapist for a little while. I have extra studies in Chinese medicine in that department. And even if you come in with pain, it's going to affect your emotions. So it's a good skill to have. But actually, generally speaking, it's holistic, but most patients come in more anxiety and stress than pain, actually. Yeah.
I would have never thought that. So it was sort of a big unlock in my brain that it's a sort of alternative to therapy or in conjunction with.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love therapy. I would say it's in conjunction with just
Yeah.
like PT with acupuncture or like chiro with acupuncture. I don't think it's either or, depending on what's going on with the person, you know?
Yeah.
So,
So what can somebody, if somebody has never been to an acupuncturist before, what would you say to them to give it a try? And then what can they expect when they come into Moon Phase?
okay, well, first major thing with acupuncture is people are afraid of needles, right? So, it's amazing medicine, but people are like, no way, I'm afraid of needles. But funny thing is, I'm actually afraid of needles. So, that's one thing. So I get a lot of new patients that have never had acupuncture, and I feel like I'm a good practitioner for that. A couple of reasons. One, I'm super gentle because I mean, I have a lot of tattoos, obviously. I'm not fully afraid of needles, but I used to be afraid of acupuncture needles. I'm not anymore. But I'm in my 40s and I can't get my blood drawn. It's very embarrassing. I'm like very afraid of that. So I'm gentle and I explain what I'm doing a lot. And I love acupuncture. I've been to a million acupuncture, not a million, but a lot of acupuncturists. And when I started getting acupuncture, no one told me what was happening. And I feel like knowledge is power. It calms nerves. It helps people out. So, I feel out the room. I'm not going to talk someone's ear off if they're not interested in it, but it calms people down.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's a little nerve wracking. You're like, oh, there's a stranger that's gonna stick needles in me from 4,000 years old medicine. But so anyway, I explain how everything I do is 100% safe. I explain that the needles are thin that I use, that I'm very, very gentle. Um, and then the first treatment, we talk a lot. I run like a boutique style practice, so I really spend a lot of time with patients in
Mm.
general, but especially the first treatment because it really is holistic medicine and everyone's imbalanced mentally and physically, and it's my job to figure out how. So I spent a long time with the patient the first time. Like, obviously, we're going to talk about chief complaints, but just holistically anything that could be imbalanced.
Mm.
So and then, I answer any questions. And it's actually super relaxing, very relaxing. So yeah,
I've only done acupuncture once, and I remember leaving. Had shared this with me beforehand, and I felt this way when I left. It kind of felt like I was floating in like the most sort of like ethereal, relaxed way. I don't know if that's common for most people, but it really was this release of you could just feel your muscles sort of letting go.
totally. It's almost always like that. It's euphoric. It's relaxing. We call that acu high, to be honest, but it's like a natural high, like you meditated, went for a run or what have you. But it's very relaxing. So, and it depends on what points you do, because I do points for energy, so sometimes it can be very relaxing, but you don't fall asleep or you don't drop in, as some people say. It just really depends on what the treatment's for, but it is oddly very relaxing, even if you're afraid of needles. So,
For the like anxiety, mental health part, how often do you recommend, or how frequently do you see patients who are seeing you for something like that?
well, everything in this medicine is case by case, which is one of the reasons why I love it. It's not cookie cutter. It really depends on the person and what's going on with them. So,
Mhm.
again, you're saying one chief complaint, but it could differ per person. So a lot of people come every other week for that instance. Some people come once a week, some people come once a month. It really depends on what's going on with the patient and what they're comfortable with. So I always give a patient a treatment plan after the first session, and we check in here and there too. But I also work with the patient. Not everyone has unlimited time or money or both. So you know, so it really depends. I know that's vague, but
Oh, I mean, I'm just curious to see kind of like the cadence of it. You opened your space in Thousand Oaks in November 2021.
mhm.
How did you find this particular location? You're not living in Thousand Oaks, so you were in like the West Hills area, you said, right? So how did you come out to Thousand Oaks after being in Westlake?
So when I was looking for my space, I really wanted a space, and I'm open-minded, as you can see. So I looked in Sherman Oaks. I looked where I live, like Woodland Hills, and then I looked near Westlake, and I was like, let me just look around, see what I can find that's going to work for me, because I had a vision, and you try to fill that vision. And then I was looking around and I built a lot of clientele in the Westlake area too. So I thought that would be good. And I'm friends with Brittany Carpenter that owns Space and Soul and all the girls there actually. And one day I was just talking to her about it and she's like, you know what? I think there's a space open, like two doors over from me. And I was so surprised. And her studio was 5 minutes away from me in Westlake too. So I was like, okay, okay. So I actually got her broker, who was one of my patients' husbands, actually, and found the space. And it was just like perfect bones for what I wanted to do. And yeah, it just kind of worked out. It's perfect.
Well, what was your vision for the space? What did you have in mind that you were looking for?
So I wanted more than one treatment room. I wanted to have like two or three, and that's what I had in Sherman Oaks, just so you could see more than one patient at a time. And then potential to rent to other practitioners, acupuncturists or otherwise, like massage therapists, what have you.
Hmm.
And I'm a creative person and that never goes away. So I didn't want to have a, a waiting room, which is unconventional. So I wanted to have a store.
Mm.
And I started selling crystals on the side when I was in Westlake, just 2020. Um, and it started to go well. So it was my, side business. So I wanted a space that could have a little storefront, basically.
Hmm.
And that's what I have now. So
That's
yeah.
amazing. And you're still selling crystals there.
Yeah, I sell a lot of different things. I still sell crystals. I love them, but I sell all kinds of gifts, clothing, jewelry, random things like puzzles, greeting cards. I don't even know. I sell so many different things. Sometimes I sell like things for kids. It's always changing.
Hmm.
I like to not really restock, just switch it up, basically.
Oh.
But all kinds of gift items, basically. Yeah.
It was like curated by Allison, little things for people to
Yeah.
find, discover.
And like oracle cards, tarot cards, things like that.
Do you find that your space is, it sounds to me to be different than maybe what somebody else would find out here. Have you found that to be true? Like what sets you guys apart?
Yeah, totally. It's alternative medicine, so that's different in itself. And then my store that I sell a lot of metaphysical things is different, but I mean the wellness trend or community is growing and there's definitely a lot of that in Thousand Oaks, Westlake. So it is somewhat different, but I don't think it's, extremely different, you know, um, especially over the past 5 years or so.
You've seen an evolution.
Yeah, I feel like in general, especially in California, especially in Southern California, and even in the suburbs. So
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you've had other businesses. Sounds maybe not a physical space before, but other product businesses or lines. Is there something that you learned from those businesses, maybe good things and bad things that you've applied now to Moon Phase?
yeah, definitely. I mean, my whole thing is whenever anyone asks me about opening a business, with all my businesses, I mean, you just have to try. You just have to start, like the older I get, the less I'm type A, which is actually great for owning your own business. So you just my thing is to just start, which has been good and bad for me in all four of my businesses. Just start and then correct after. Because if people I found with myself and other people, if you don't start, you're never going to do it. You're just going to keep procrastinating. So I've learned a lot from that and then from things I could do differently along the way. So it differs per business, but yeah.
What have you found to be the most challenging part of running Moon Phase?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. Like I think running any business is really hard. The economy has been downturning the past couple of years, so that's been hard. Doing everything yourself is really hard. I'm also a single mom, which is hard in itself. But just, I guess, balancing personal life and business when you have your own. But that's challenging if you're working for someone else or having your own business. But I think it just adds another layer, you know?
And is there any way, could you imagine being a corporate employee at this point, or could you only imagine running your own thing?
I mean, not for acupuncture. If I was going to do something else and have more than one job, I mean, I prefer working for myself, but there was definitely pros to working for corporations, but not in this field. I don't think so. Like if I did a project in fashion again or something, I would definitely be open to that if it was the right thing. So,
What are you most proud of with Moon Phase?
um, I don't know, everything. Just that I've done it, that I'm still going, that with COVID and the economy and divorce, everything, that I'm just still going and that I get to help people every day.
Yeah.
And that's the most rewarding thing. So I guess that I had a dream, I made it happen. Yeah, it hasn't been perfect and I'm still evolving, but that I'm still doing it and that I get to help people, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, kudos. Like, that's a lot. And to actually be able to help people, not just run a business, but see results for others, I can imagine is very satisfying.
Totally.
What's your vision for Moon Phase for next year, for 2026?
Um, I love doing events and collaborations, and I've been doing that since even before I had my own space. So I want to continue to do that and get creative in that realm and like collaborate with different people and have different events. I want to start doing women's circles at my space and just focus on. Obviously, it's a business, I need to make money, but I also want to focus on the community aspect of it and a different way of helping people that's in groups, not just individual. So I want to do that, and I want to work on my store a little bit too, and build that up more, and maybe get online and just become an actual store, and potentially have its own location in the future too. So maybe I'll have like a clinic, and then also a store in the future. I don't know if they'll be in a year, but maybe in two.
I like it. Big vision.
Yeah.
What's a women's circle?
They can vary. Like sometimes they're around astrology and like the moon phases, new moon, full moon, but also just I want to create different communities for like women's support groups. So I'm working on one right now that's called Moon Phase Mingle, and it's for women 35 plus to just meet and talk about things. And we'll do a little ritual that you talk about what you want to bring in and what you want to release, which can be metaphysical or not. Really, it's just. And just a place for people to gather and vent, and share, basically.
Sounds amazing. Good for you for like leaning into that part of it. Speaking of community, would you recommend running a business in the Conejo Valley?
Definitely, yeah, it's been amazing. Totally. The community is great. Everyone's so nice. I love so many of the local businesses. I've collaborated with a couple, and it's cool. We tend to like bump each other up, which I appreciate.
That's huge. So I know you offer acupuncture, but you also do gua sha, you do cupping. If you had to choose, what's your favorite procedure out of what you offer?
Definitely acupuncture. I mean, it's my modality. But Chinese medicine, it's all of those modalities. It's cupping, gua sha, um, moxibustion, which is called moxa, and Chinese herbs, and obviously like dietary advice and acupuncture. But if I could only do one, I would do acupuncture because I don't know, you could get the best results with it, I believe. Most holistic approach.
Is there an herbal supplement that you recommend most people to try, or is that too hard for most people?
Yeah, I don't because with Chinese herbs, it's a prescription. So I actually most of the time don't even recommend things to people or formulas to people unless they come see me.
Hmm.
Just because it's not like a pharmaceutical, it's totally different. It's way more gentle, but it's not like a cookie cutter. It's more of like it caters towards Chinese medical diagnosis, which is very complicated. It's hard to describe, but it's not so much like you have this problem, you take this
Right.
pill. So yeah, so
Okay.
it's complicated.
That's cool. I'm so curious about that, and it'll be interesting to dive into that maybe separately. What is your favorite thing to do out here in the Conejo Valley?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I like to drink wine.
Where do you have a favorite place to get a glass of wine?
I like to go to West Tasting Room. That place is great. Yeah, I go to Stonehouse too. I'm blanking and where else? Oh, I go to Sunrose a lot. I love that place. Yeah, I don't know. Go to parks with my kid, things like that. But I love food too, Oh, I also go to Blue Table sometimes for wine too. But yeah, there's a lot of great places.
Yeah. I know. I'm a huge fan of West and Sunrose and Everett Stonehouse. They're all great. They're especially for wine. They're great. There's a lot of good options out here, I think.
Totally.
Okay, my last question for you, Alyson, is what piece of advice would you offer to a first-time entrepreneur?
Definitely what I was saying before, just do it. Just start it, just obviously make a plan, but you don't have to worry about it so much. Just make a plan, get good graphic design, something aesthetically pleasing. I think that's important.
I do love your logo. You've got a great logo.
Thank you so much. I mean, obviously I have a background in aesthetics, but I partnered with one of my friends that's a graphic designer. But I think that's important. Branding's important, but don't get too stuck on it that you don't get started, So pick a vision, start, and then revise. Totally.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Alyson, for being on the podcast. And thank you for all that you're doing to help people out here in the community. And I wish you an amazing 2026 and beyond with your business.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Conejo Valley Visionaries. If you like today's episode, make sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And don't forget to rate and review us. That's the best way to support the podcast. To enter our giveaways, learn about local events, and to find out more about each guest, follow at Conejo Valley Visionaries on Instagram. If you want to share your visionary story on the podcast, send us an email. We are always open to guest nominations. Email ConejoValleyVisionaries@gmail.com. This episode was produced by Cristina Dennstedt and J.Sloan. Conejo Valley Visionaries is edited by J.Sloan and J.Sloan Productions.